Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for watching GunGuyTV and supporting me the way you do. I'm excited to announce that just a few days ago, we hit the 100,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. We're averaging about 600 to 700,000 views per month. I'm very excited about the progress with GunGuyTV, and indeed, even the audio podcast seems to be taking off, so that's a great thing. Thank you very much for all of your support. Without you, obviously, I would just be talking to myself, which, frankly, I kind of do anyway, but don't tell anybody. It makes me look a little crazy. Now, if you would like to support GunGuyTV in any way, I want to urge you to do that. You can do that a few different ways. One way you can do it is by shopping using our Amazon link. You can do that by going to our website at GunGuy.tv, or if you like, GunGuyTV.net or GunGuyTV.com. Any of those things will get you there. Click on the little icon on the top. For Amazon, that'll get you the Amazon link. And then if you just bookmark it, and when you shop Amazon, it costs you nothing. They pay us a little bit of a marketing fee, and it helps us keep GunGuyTV on the air, so to speak. We need all the help we can get. I am very, very pleased to have my very good friend and fellow soldier in the Second Amendment fight, Sam Paredes, with me today. Sam is from Gun Owners of California. He is one of my favorite people on this earth. I'm very grateful to know him. I'm grateful to have him in the fight with us. He does a great job, and he's going to give us an update on what's happening in California. Welcome, Sam. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Joel, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Our conversations are always the most stimulating that I get to have, because when I'm not talking with you, I'm talking with legislators in committee at the Capitol, and oh my goodness, what a difference. It's enough to...
Can't be friendly.
Oh my goodness! You walk out of the building and you feel like you need a shower and you want to go shoot your toes off or something.
Yeah, well, the shower is a better choice. You walk a little funny with the toes missing. So what is happening? Give us an update. What is happening in the state of California? I know we have the ammo thing coming up in July, which is I'm getting a lot of questions about, and frankly, people are quite unclear as to how that works. So any clarity you can give us there with that, and then the other battles going on in the state would be awesome.
Let's start with ammunition. As you said, July 1st, the ammunition laws in the state of California are going to go into effect fully. And what that means is that people will not be able to buy ammunition anywhere except from a licensed California ammunition vendor. Now, all gun dealers are automatically licensed vendors, but then there are other folks out there like Walmart and other places where you can buy ammunition where they don't sell guns. And what's going to happen is that the background check process will begin July 1st. And here is what people are going to have to do in order to buy ammunition. They're going to get to go, select the ammunition. Remember, they can't touch the ammunition. It has to be handled by the seller and then taken up to the cash register. Then the purchaser is going to have an opportunity to select which background check they're going to want to go through. Number one, if you are on the APHIS list, that's the Automated Firearm System. That means that you have purchased a firearm from a dealer in the state of California sometime in the past. You've gone through the 10-day waiting period and filled out the dealer record of sales, also known as DROS. If you filled one of those things out, you are automatically put on the Automated Firearm System. If your name appears on that, they will bounce your name against the Armed Prohibited Persons list, and if you they don't get a hit on that list, then you can pay your $1 and walk out. Oh, after you have filled out a form that gives your name, your address, your telephone number, the ammunition that you purchased, your driver's license, the name of the salesperson, and all of your contact information. From that document, that will be entered into a computer for them to go through the process. If you clear with no problem, you pay a $1 fee for that transaction, no matter how much ammunition you buy, no matter what calibers you buy. It's $1 and you walk out. So that is a instant background check. Now, for the probably hundreds of thousands and maybe even millions of Californians who are not on the automated firearm system because the guns they have, they inherited from their fathers or grandfathers or family, and they never had to go through a dealer to legally possess them. They do legally possess them now, but they do not appear on the APHIS list. They're going to have a couple of options, and that the first option is that they go out and apply for a certificate of eligibility. That certificate of eligibility includes a finger roll printing. It costs about $90 or $99. You have to wait for the Department of Justice to do the background check and to check your fingerprints and to put you into the system. And maybe 30 days later, you will have a COE and have the ability to buy ammunition instantly. You still have to fill out all of the information. They still have to check, but that is the second option. The third option is that you pay $19 and you basically do a complete dealer record of sales transaction with the dealer. That includes a 10-day waiting period, $19 fee. And they go and they check that, and the Department of Justice will issue you a transaction number so that you can track the progress of your background check. Now, the interesting thing is that the statute, the law that governs the ammunition laws, calls for an instant background check. It does not call for waiting periods and these extensions and tracking numbers and all of this stuff. But the Department of Justice has chosen to add to the law and admit that they are not going to comply with the letter of the law and the statute and conduct an instant background check. By issuing you a tracking number so that you can follow the progress of your background check, they're admitting that this is not an instant background check. That's an issue for us and will probably be discussed in a court here real soon. Those are the ways that you can purchase ammunition. Out of state folks will not be able to purchase ammunition in the state of California unless from their state they apply for a certificate of eligibility here in the state of California, and it's sent to them. They go through the background check, pay the $99, do the fingerprint thing, and then they get that COE, and then they can come to California and they can buy ammunition. Outside of that, there is no way for non-residents of California to purchase ammunition. However, they can bring all the ammunition they want from out of state. They can shoot it. They can take it home. They can give it away to their friends or family when they're here. They cannot sell it in the state of California, but they can give it away. And Californians, residents, cannot go outside of California to buy ammunition and bring it in. All ammunition that is purchased outside of California has to be delivered to a dealer. So if you're trying to prevent members of social groups that are centered in some of our urban areas that want to use firearms for illegal purposes, nothing prevents them from having a fellow from another state bring in all the ammunition they want. They won't break any laws. They'll give it to them and use it for whatever purpose they want, and they will not be afoul of the law. But if you and I go out, we go hunting, buy some ammunition in Nevada, come back with one round left in our box, bring it into the state, we're in violation of the law. How's that? What do you think?
Sam, that's not okay. So what California has essentially done is create a black market in ammunition. That's what they've done.
That's what we said all along.
That's what we've been saying since day one. That's all they've done is create a black market in television, in ammunition. First of all, there's a few things that are kind of interesting about this, and I've talked to some law enforcement folks that are friends of mine. There's always the fear that if you happen to stop across the border at the gun store and buy some ammunition and you have California plates and you come back across the border, that you're going to get stopped and caught. That's possible. Mm-hmm. It's not likely. Now, I'm not encouraging you to go do that. So if you're watching this, I just want you to know, I'm not encouraging you in any way to break the law, but I'm stating the obvious, and that is that is precisely what folks are going to do. Here's what folks are going to do. Some people are going to go through this whole nutty crazy whack job process. But there are going to be other folks who have family members, friends, or whatever, who live in Nevada, Arizona, or what have you, who come and visit periodically, and they're going to say, hey, Uncle Jim or Aunt Susie or whatever, let me send you some money on the QT. Would you go by and buy me 5,000 rounds of X? And when you come by, it's legal for you to bring in the state. Just if you don't mind dropping it off at my house or whatever, I'd really appreciate it. And then that's what's going to happen. And now they're all stocked up in ammo. There's going to be other folks who are going to go to Las Vegas for a weekend. And while they're there having a great time, on the first day that they go, probably, or the second day or whatever, they're going to go by the gun store and they're going to buy a bunch of ammo and put it in a car. And they're going to be in Vegas for 3 or 4 days. And then they're going to drive home. From Las Vegas to San Diego, there is no place where anybody stops you and asks you if you have ammo in the car. There's the agricultural check, and they do this. I'm in my 60s, Sam. I have never had them stop me and ask me anything in the years and years and years I've gone through there. They stopped the big semis like, they're stop me. Then you got the Border Patrol. Does the Border Patrol actually care about California law? No. Here's a little secret for you. The Border Patrol are federal agents with limited authority. They're looking for smuggling people and smuggling drugs. That's what they're looking for. They are not sworn under California police officers and standards under post. And so they're sworn under Flexi, which is a different system. So they don't have any authority to enforce California law. So they don't care. They're not even going to ask you. So the reality is some folks are going to go through the background check, and an awful lot of regular gun folks who shoot all the time are going to do what I just described, and all it's going to be is a black market in ammo. And you know what? If you got a buddy who's got Aunt Susie's bringing him 1,000 rounds, you go, hey, would you mind having Aunt Susie bring me 1,000 rounds too? Sure, because it's legal for Aunt Susie to do. Excuse my rant, but this is just the nuttiest stuff that California does. Right now, by the way, right now, Sam, I got to tell you, there are 5,000 people looking at this video in the next few weeks or whatever, next few days, half of which are saying to themselves, gee, am I glad I don't live in San Diego, or gee, am I glad I don't live in LA, or gee, am I glad I don't live in California.
Yeah.
Anyway, pardon me.
No, that's very true. The things that you described, Joel, we expect are going to happen. They are contrary to the law. They are illegal.
Which is why I don't encourage you to do it, because on the odd chance that you do get caught, there's a very good chance you're going to lose your firearms rights. So
yeah, absolutely.
But I'm stating the obvious reality that this is precisely what people are going to do. And so what California has done is create a situation where law-abiding people then become criminals, as opposed to just chasing criminals in the first place, which would save a lot of effort and not put these law-abiding gun owners at risk.
I want to put it this way. You have a better chance of getting caught illegally transporting ammunition in the state of California than you have winning a lottery. The California Department of Justice has agents that they regularly send to Nevada and Oregon and Arizona, and their job is to patrol the parking lots of some of the more obvious and popular vendors of guns and ammunition. And if somebody pulls into that gun store with a California license plate, they happen to maybe follow them into the store and look to see what it is that they're looking at and see what they purchase. And then when they go to their car with their purchase and put whatever they have in their trunk, they have their driver's license, and then they kind of phone ahead to a law enforcement agent in the state of California. And once they cross the border, miraculously, one of their lights are not working, or they made unsafe lane change or something like that, and then they get asked, do you have any ammunition that you purchased from Nevada and bringing it to California? And if you lie, that makes the things even worse. So it happens quite a bit. They've been doing it with the large capacity magazines issue in Reno and Las Vegas for years. And now they're going to have an opportunity to do it with ammunition also. So don't get lucky is what I say.
Yeah, well, that's why I said, I'm stating the obvious. This is what people are going to do. Believe me, I'm not encouraging you to do this because it'll be your luck that out of the 5,000 people that do it, you'll be the one who gets tagged. Right. By the way, just so that you know, I encourage you, facing all of this, if you're watching this, I encourage you to read the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th Amendments to the Constitution. Those are your rights as they pertain to law enforcement. The 4th Amendment protects you against unreasonable and unlawful search and seizure. The 5th Amendment protects you against self-incrimination. It allows you to say, I don't want to answer that question, or don't answer questions. The 6th Amendment guarantees your right to due process and the right to have an attorney present during any questioning involving a criminal matter. So if you get pulled over and the cop says, did you bring any ammunition with you from across the state? If you lie, that's a crime. If you simply say, officer, I don't want to answer questions about that kind of stuff. I thought you pulled me over because I had a light out. Then you haven't answered the question. You haven't lied. You simply haven't answered it. So this is some stuff that citizens need to know. They do have rights, and we can assert them. We need to do it respectfully because law enforcement officers, honestly, it's wise to treat them with respect, but honestly, I think they deserve it. But you should know what your rights are. So 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment, read them. Sam, I do have some questions about this.
Sure.
One is, you mentioned a certificate of eligibility. Now, at some point, people were saying that if you had a California certificate of eligibility and you had a Curio and Relic FFL license, I think it's an 03 FFL, and you had those two in combination, you could then potentially order ammunition from an online vendor and have it mailed directly to you. So in preparation for this interview, I was kind of curious, and I contacted a popular online vendor. In fact, I tell you who it is, Lucky Gunner. And I talked to them and I asked them, do you do this? And they said, well, yes and no, because we're pretty sure that's legal, but now in preparation for these regulations coming out, we've stopped. We're waiting to see, and then we'll figure out whether we can legally do that or not, because we want to ship to you folks in California. Do you have any information with regard to whether that's legal, or is that still sort of in the fuzzy zone?
It's still in the fuzzy zone because technically the regulations have not been finalized. We have not, that we're told that the regulations are substantially unchanged from the proposals that were put forth earlier in the year, and there was public comment. But you know what? If you're going to trust that, you're taking a chance. You have to wait till the regulations are finalized. You read them and you see what you can and you cannot do. And they're not released yet. The Department of Justice has not released those regulations, so we're waiting with bated breath to get them and scrutinize them. For right now, I encourage all of our folks out there to not push the envelope until we know what the truth is.
Now, would you do me a favor and explain that?
Sure.
We've talked about this a couple of times, but I think it's worth revisiting for folks in California or for folks that may decide to move here. Because oddly enough, although there are people moving out, there are a lot of people moving in. So if you're thinking about moving here, you want to know this as well. There is a difference between the law as it's passed and the law as it's applied, and that happens at the Office of Administrative Law as they issue regulations, I think. Can you explain what that process is and why, even though the law has been written and passed, we're now waiting for California to tell us what it means and how it's going to be applied and why we really need to wait for that?
Well, the legislature regularly passes policy, laws that affect a particular issue. In this case, it regards ammunition, but it's, they love passing laws governing and controlling guns, magazines, and ammunition. So that's what they do. Then they write into the law that the Department of Justice is given the responsibility to write the implementing regulations, because the legislators know nothing about process procedure. They know very little about the capacities or capabilities of the Department of Justice. It's very apparent. They have never audited them with regards to the dealer record of sales system to find out what's going on with the money and the resources and how they're spending them, what they have and what they don't have. They choose not to do that. It's the old sort of a relationship that they have. But the Department of Justice has the responsibility of writing the implementing regulations based on the statute, the limitations that are presented to them by the statute. Once they write those regulations, they put them out for public comment. There's I don't remember how long, 30 days or 90 days that they allow for public comment. And then they take those comments and they respond to them. And if there's any substantial information that comes from the public comments, they make adjustments to the regulations, and then they're supposed to come back out for public comments on any adjustments. But once they've completed writing their regulations, they submit them to the Office of Administrative Law, which is charged with crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's and making sure that the department has not overstepped its bounds, that it is staying within the constraints of the authorizing legislation, and that it is the regulations are accurately and grammatically written. And then once they give their seal of approval, the regulations can go into effect on the date that they're supposed to be activated. So that's the process. What we are contending is that the Department of Justice in these regulations has actually gone beyond the letter of the law, or is ignoring aspects of the law in order to write their regulations so that they can implement the law. And that's a telltale sign that, these guys, they don't have the capacity. They don't know what it is that they're dealing with and how they're going to handle all of this stuff. They're basically kind of giving it their best shot and waiting to see if we respond, if we challenge them, and them finding out if they can actually do it. Joel, we're talking about a massive undertaking. Over the last several years, it's been averaging about 1 million firearms transactions in the state of California. That's sales through dealers and private party sales and all of that. We've got probably 30, 40 million guns in the state of California, tens of millions of gun owners. And if everybody were to buy just one box of ammunition for each of the guns that they have in this year, you're looking at 40 million transactions. That is vastly more than the Department of Justice gets. You're talking about a number that is astronomically large, and how they are going to navigate through this is a mystery to us because, again, they've not been audited to show what resources they have. They're asking the legislature to raise the fees, the DROS fees, so that they can cover additional responsibilities that they have. And so it's a long and drawn out process, and it's kind of like going out and watching your lawn grow.
Or the paint dry.
Yes.
Although I'm aware of the fact that the DOJ has put a big clamp on their agents in the firearms section and the folks that work there with regard to their ability to speak to members of the press or YouTubers or bloggers or anything on an authorized fashion. Nevertheless, word gets out. And it's my understanding, just from word getting out, I'll just put it that way, that the agents involved and the folks involved in this department think this, first of all, they're not real thrilled with the law, but they're looking at this going, this is an impossibility. It's not, it's an enormous undertaking that the state does not have the wherewithal, either from a financial perspective or personnel perspective, to actually make function correctly. So one of the things I think we can expect is that this thing is a big, cumbersome, complicated machine that is going to break down on a regular basis. Am I looking at this in the wrong way?
No, that's absolutely accurate. I mean, the system that they have right now for dealer record of sales, it crashes regularly throughout the year. You can almost predict when it's going to crash, and it goes down, and people can't get their guns because they're not approved. Or
they've got a similar name to somebody else who isn't approved. That actually happened to a neighbor of mine that lives, I don't know, a quarter of a mile from me. He came over and talked to me one day. He said this is about the third time he's tried to buy a firearm, and he's been told you can't buy this because you're a prohibited person. And of course he's not. Right. He's retired. He owned a small business. But his name is very similar to this other fella, and this has happened to him now 3 times. He actually had to get a hold of his state assembly member to have them straighten it out, and he was able to go get his firearm. Well, if that happens with firearms, it's most assuredly going to happen with ammunition as well.
Especially when there will be 10 times more transactions that take place than there are firearms.
Right.
And Joel, that's a very, very important point that you just brought up. People need to understand when we hear the argument about the need for registration and background checks and all of that stuff, and the number of criminals that are stopped, or the number of occasions that gun purchases or ammunition purchases are going to be stopped because the person was ineligible. Close to 90% of those occasions where there is a red flag that comes up and a weight is put on, it's because of a name issue. Their name is similar to somebody else, so it's a false positive, and it's unfortunately incumbent upon us to do the work to correct that. And it's usually a one-time correction, and next time you try to buy a gun, or in the future when you buy ammunition, it's going to continue to be a problem. But at least you know how to address that issue, and that's a good thing. So all of our folks need to understand that when they hear the numbers of how many bad guys registration is stopping and stuff, 90% of them are mistakes because the system is jacked up. It's
and that,
not
that skews the numbers, and they don't seem to care. I think they use the skewed numbers anyway. I have another question, that is, because it comes up a lot, are reloading components somewhere restricted in here, or are people who do hand loading and reloading still able to order their components and have them shipped?
We don't want to tip our hat.
I'm sorry. Did I say something? No.
No. But all of our folks, they need to know that if you are a reloader, you are completely unaffected by the ammunition laws in the state of California. You can buy all the primers, powders, powder cases, projectiles you want for handguns, rifles, shotguns, and reload, and totally be unaffected by the registration laws. You can have it all mail ordered and delivered to your home, no problem. And I would venture to guess that hand loading is going to become extremely more popular in the state of California than it has in the past. Yeah. And one of the things that I argued in committee multiple times is that, nothing is going to prevent an organized group of people who are regularly violating the law from identifying one of their members and telling them, go out and learn how to reload, so that we don't have to go through any effort to have all the ammunition we need to do what we need to do. And they go out and buy a reloading machine, they get all the components they want, they build all their ammunition, and from that point, they will not have broken any law. It is when they distribute the ammunition that they have reloaded, that they have broken the law. But not all criminals are dumb. They might be stupid for breaking the law, but they're not dumb. And a lot of them are very, very smart, and they're going to figure out how to get around this law and to be unaffected by it. So again, the ammunition laws that have been passed in the state of California only really affect law-abiding citizens. People are concerned, well, if I'm on APIS and I have a 9mm and a 45 registered to my name, are they going to prevent me from buying 40 Smith & Wesson and 22 and 38 Special and 44 Magnum because I don't have a gun registered to that? No. There's no limitation on what caliber of ammo you purchase, how much you purchase. It just, it's that $1 transaction fee for each transaction, no matter how large or how small. The $19 fee, if with the background check and the 10-day waiting period like the DROS, that's going to be a one-time fee. Every time you go and buy ammunition, you're going to have to go through the same process, the $19, the background check, the 10-day waiting period, and that once you do that, it's only valid for one transaction, and it has to happen within 30 days of conducting that selection for a background check.
Ammo's getting more expensive on a regular basis. You brought up something that I find very interesting, and that is the idea that because I'm on the list of California gun owners, obviously DOJ knows the caliber of those guns in many respects and which ones I have. However, if I inherited firearms, or if I purchased long guns, for example, before they were required to be registered, or if I purchased a lower for an AR, which was just then on the DROS is just written down as receiver because the caliber has not yet been determined, or if I bought a handgun eons ago before they were required to be registered, those guns, California has no idea where they are or who owns them until I go down and buy a box of ammunition for that Colt Python I inherited from my Uncle Jim. I didn't have an Uncle Jim, but nevertheless, but you know what I mean. Or that pistol I required, and I don't have anything in the system in that caliber. Doesn't this essentially end up being some kind of backdoor registration attempt for guns that they don't know exist?
There is no question about it, and they're going to know for a long time, because every time you purchase ammunition, your name is going to be added to a ammunition buyers database. So the state of California is going to maintain a database of all of the ammunition that you buy, and they're going to have it permanently. So some of us who happen to shoot a lot in a given year and buy multiple thousands or tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition per year to shoot, after a couple of years, that number in their database is going to be significantly large. And forgive me if I don't trust my government because they don't trust me to own a gun, but like that sticker on the back here, some enterprising young Department of Justice newbie is going to go and say, oh my goodness, Sam Paredes has 180,000 rounds of ammunition that he's purchased in the last 2 years, 3 years. Maybe we ought to see what he's doing with all that ammunition. And of course, they'll send an agent over or somebody in their black Suburban, and they'll come and they'll say, Mr. Paredes, we're just curious, what are you doing with all that ammunition that you purchased over this year? I said, ammunition? I don't have any. I have 180,000 empty cases. It's not ammunition anymore, but I used it. And it's going to be just these interactions that, forgive me, but I'm skeptical when those types of things happen. But that's what we're leading to, because this serves no purpose to prevent any crime, to stop any crime, to solve any crime. It only serves a purpose from making it more difficult for law-abiding citizens to purchase ammunition for their own personal use.
Yeah,
Criminals,
that's about
by
it,
definition,
right.
don't abide.
Which brings up, I mean, first of all, you've said nothing I disagree with. Let me just mention one more time, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. If you're watching this, those are your homework. Google them or Bing them or whatever and read them so you know what they are and you know what their rights are. By the way, when Department of Justice or police officers come by and they don't have a warrant, they just want to ask you questions and chat with you, that's called a knock and talk. They knock on the door and they talk to you and ask you questions, waiting for you to answer in some way that incriminates you. Or they want to come inside. Oh, by the way, can I come inside? You mind if we come inside? And then the plain view rule applies, which means anything laying in plain view that's a violation, they're going to be able to charge you with. This is how this is done. So if DOJ, because of something you purchased with ammunition, comes knocking on your door and say, "Well, I understand that you bought 15,000 rounds of so and so and such. We'd like to talk with you about that." I appreciate that, officer. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. I don't want to answer any questions. If you'd like to ask me questions, I'd like to speak to my attorney. But right now, I'm in the middle of something. Thank you. Goodbye. Close the door. Or for that matter, if you see him outside knocking on your door and you know you've done nothing wrong, don't answer the door. This is not hard. People get themselves in trouble because they feel obligated to answer questions from the Department of Justice agents or whatever. Look, you don't have to answer questions. Now, if they show up at your door and they have a legal warrant, then you got to let them in and you got to let them do what they do. But without a warrant, they can ask you all the questions they want to, or they can ask your front door, which is probably better, and then you don't get yourself in trouble. Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, do your homework. All right, Sam, we have a few minutes left.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
There is a lot of stuff going on in the state of California.
Oh my goodness.
What kind of court cases do we have going on, and what do you think our odds are? Well,
this is a thing that makes it very exciting to be involved in the fight to restore and protect the Second Amendment in the state of California. In the legislature at the beginning of the year, there were close to 60 bills that we were monitoring. A whole bunch of them are still making their way through the process. We are fighting them every step of the way. And unfortunately, we know the fact that we're not going to be able to stop. They're going to get to the governor's desk and he is going to sign them. And you know what? It's one of those things like, oh, just go right ahead. That's just in a year or so, we'll see what you think about all of these things that you passed. The Supreme Court has accepted a very significant case. It's called the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus the City of New York. It's a lawsuit, and they have granted certiorari, which means they're going to hear the case at the beginning of the next session, which I believe is September or October of this year. Excuse me. And this case involves transporting firearms within the City of New York. You can go to our website at www.gunownersca.com, go to resources and go to courts, and you can find out what all of these cases are in order to get the details. Suffice it to say, there's this City of New York had an unconstitutional law that prevented people from taking guns outside of their homes, transporting them anywhere except for a handful of approved gun ranges within the city. You couldn't take it outside of the city to go hunting, to go to a gun show, to go visit your family. For any other reason, it was illegal for you to take those guns outside of your home. Well, the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, with the support of the National Rifle Association, filed a lawsuit. They hit a bumpy road all the way, went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme said, hey, we're going to hear this case. All of a sudden, the anti-gun world went apoplectic. They're saying, oh no, this cannot happen. So they even convinced the City of New York to try to change the law in order to attempt to moot the case that the Supreme Court has accepted. But the Supreme Court said, nah, we're up to your shenanigans. We're taking this case and we're gonna hold a trial on it. We believe that it's very simple. Even the City of New York expects that the court is going to overturn their unconstitutional transportation limitations on transporting firearms outside the home. We think that's a given. The most important thing, though, is that we believe that the court is going to take this opportunity to tell all of the other courts in the country, all of the appellate courts, all of the district courts, that we are tired of you flipping us the finger and ignoring our directions to you with regards to what level of scrutiny you should use on Second Amendment cases. Justice Scalia in Heller versus Washington, D.C. said that the only thing that he advised judges from to refrain from using judicial balancing tests. That includes rational basis, intermediate scrutiny, and strict scrutiny to define the gun control laws and to define the Second Amendment. He said that the only thing that they should be using is the text, history, and tradition of the words of the Second Amendment as they were drafted by our founders at the time. That is the governing criteria that the judges are restricted to, basically, to use in ruling on Second Amendment cases. Of course, anti-gun judges and anti-gun appellate courts have ignored it, and they have even winked their eye at state legislatures and saying, oh, don't worry about it. Whatever you pass, we're going to find constitutional. They've empowered the creation and the passage of anti-constitutional laws throughout the country. Well, we believe that the Supreme Court has had enough, and they're going to rule that the only thing that judges can use is text, history, and tradition of the meaning of the words written in the Constitution in the Second Amendment at the time of the founders, by the founders.
Now, Sam, do we have a feel for when that case is actually going to be decided and a ruling might be published?
Well, we believe that they're going to try it at the beginning of the next session. They've already accepted it, so their docket has been pretty full this session, and we believe that in September, October, they're going to August or September, they're going to hear this case.
So what could happen then is a lot of this nonsense that states like California are passing and bringing into law could be just summarily, well, maybe not summarily thrown out, but there are going to be court cases to throw these things out, are there not?
You bet your sweet Bippy that it's going to open the floodgates for us to be able to challenge all of the unconstitutional laws that are on the books in the state of California and throughout the country. As a matter of fact, we know that a lot of the appellate courts are expecting a significant ruling from the Supreme Court because they are slow walking many of the cases that are before them right now, waiting to see how the court rules on New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus the City of New York. And to add to that, the Supreme Court is actually considering whether to accept the New Jersey State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Grewal, who's the Attorney General of the state, that has to do with concealed carry and open carry and the actual carrying of firearms. They have a very interesting. There's all kinds of mystery as to what happens and how they do things at the Supreme Court. They had an opportunity to reject this case, but instead they put off making a decision on what to do with this case for a later time. And we think that they might be doing that in order to wait to see how they rule on New York versus New York. There's another case that they are also considering, and they have granted a docket. That means that they have opened up a file for briefs to be submitted, and that is Jeremy Kepler versus the United States. This is a case that challenges the NFA of 1934 and challenges the constitutionality of having a tax program, which admittedly the NFA is a tax program that governs all Class 3 firearms and equipment, full autos and suppressors and short barrel rifles and shotguns and things like that. And since that case, since 1934, unrelated to the Gun Control Act of 1934, the Supreme Court has had some cases that kind of touch on the issue that it's kind of unconstitutional to tax the exercising of a constitutional right. Well, if you add that perspective to what the admitted NFA 1934 is, that kind of makes that act unconstitutional. And if that happens, there will be some more significant changes in the United States with regards to gun control of suppressors and full autos and things like that. So
now I should caution, I want to make sure I understand, because I should caution that if and I'm hoping it's not an if, I hope it's a when. And I hope it's a win, W-H-E-N, when it happens, and I hope it's a win, W-I-N, because we got the right ruling. But when the court decides these things, the Supreme Court, if they decide in a direction that we like, which is what you're describing, my understanding, forgive me, I'm a layman, not an attorney, but my understanding is that does not instantaneously do away with all these laws, but rather the courts have to then go back and look at these laws again. So it is going to take time. It's not going to be an immediate thing. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. When we get this ruling, we'll have every reason to celebrate, but all it means is that now we have to get to the work of legally, through the process that was established by our founding fathers, to overturn all of these gun control laws that are now unconstitutional. And so this is not the time to give up on supporting your pro-gun organizations. We're going to have to continue to do this for several more years as we work through the process of having those unconstitutional gun control laws stripped from the books. So what we're saying here is that we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we can hear the bell and the horn of the train that's coming, and it's very exciting.
Yeah.
We're encouraged. The fact that Justice Kavanaugh, when he was on the D.C. Circuit Court in a ruling on, I believe it was Heller 3 or Heller 4, he actually used the terminology that Justice Scalia used on text, history, and tradition of the words. We know that Justice Gorsuch, when he was being interviewed by the Congress for approval to the Supreme Court, he used the same words himself. We know that Justice Thomas is there. Justice Alito is rock solid. He wrote the decision on McDonald versus Chicago. If our weakest link is Chief Justice Roberts, who has a perfect 100% pro Second Amendment voting record. Boy, we are in good shape. We're very excited.
Well,
about
he's been wishy-washy on other stuff, but not on the Second Amendment. So he's been really solid on that. So.
And for right now, I don't care what he does on other stuff.
I don't care either. I care about you. Right. I'm absolutely there. Just a couple points real quick, and I'm sure I'm going to irritate somebody, but as you know, it's not the first time, won't be the last. Here, look, and I don't want to go down this rat hole. I just want to bring it up, and then I have a question for you. Right now, the National Rifle Association is going through a lot of upheaval, and they've got a lot of issues, and I think a lot of them are self-inflicted, quite frankly. But nevertheless, it's not the time to abandon NRA, in my humble opinion, even though they're going through this. And it is hard to cough up, to renew your membership when you are hearing that maybe there's a mismanagement of funds inside and like that. But at the same time, the very case we're hoping on out of New York was done by the New York Rifle and Pistol Association with support of the National Rifle Association. So we have to be careful not to shoot ourselves in the foot by arbitrarily killing organizations that are doing us some good. Here's the other point. It's coming out of New York. New York is one of the most restrictive states in the country with regard to firearms. California is not the only restrictive state. In fact, frankly, New York and New Jersey are more restrictive than California, and yet this case is coming from there. So this is the other reason why I encourage people, don't move out, stay and fight the fight where the fight exists. Now, if you choose to move out anyway, hallelujah, good for you. I'm glad you're now in back in the United States, not in the People's Socialist Republic of whatever state you were in. But if you do that, please support that local state association, whether it's Gun Owners of California or the New York Rifle and Pistol Association or whatever association it is in Jersey or whatever. Send them some money, because even if you're not there, help them out, because they're fighting the battle for you in that restrictive state. And it's out of those restrictive states that cases like this one in New York are going to happen. We think about them as only changing the laws in restrictive states, but look what's happening in Texas. Look what's happening in Nevada. Look what's already happened in Colorado. Look what's happened in Oregon and Washington. Look what's happening in Arizona, in Maricopa County. Look at how these leftist anti-gunners are moving out of restrictive states into the non-restrictive ones, into the free states, and trying to turn them into what they left. Mm-hmm. That's why these Supreme Court battles are extremely important, and where they come from is cases that are adjudicated in very restrictive states. So these organizations, Gun Owners of California in particular, need your support. I don't care if you're in Alabama, Georgia, or some other free state. We need you to support your brothers and sisters and fellow firearms owners and Second Amendment advocates in these states. So there you go. I have it. It's my show, and by George, if I want to rant, I can, and I just did. All right. Now, there is a case. I was listening intently, and I may have missed it because I was taking some notes, but there is the case out of Hawaii for open carry. Did you mention that?
Young versus Hawaii is the case.
And what's going on with that one?
That is one of the cases that has been is at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they are very. That's one of the slow walking cases. They're not, haven't brought it to any sort of a hearing or trial yet. They've accepted it. They had a positive ruling from a 3-judge panel. They're talking about going en banc, which means an 11-judge panel will be set up to rehear it and overturn the 3-judge panel ruling on that, which was very positive. There are issues that the court is having because the Trump administration has been doing a very diligent job of replacing the vacancies in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals with pro-Constitution believing folks, and he is within a couple of appointments short of having a 50-50 split between the Democrat-appointed justices and the Republican-appointed justices at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which will have an amazingly powerful impact there.
So even if he's only a couple justices away, Sam, I mean, it strikes me that already as it sits, the Ninth Circuit is no longer as nutty as it used to be, and the automatic win for the anti-gunners on an en banc panel is no longer automatic. Am I reading that correctly?
No, you're absolutely reading that correctly. The only way that it can continue to be nutty is if the Chief Justice of the Ninth does some shenanigans and makes sure that when he selects or appoints or draws judges to be on 3-judge panels, that he regularly selects some of his more left-leaning justices that are on the court. That would have to take an effort on his part to do that. But I don't put that past anybody. What happens behind the paneled walls of the courts are a mystery, and how they do that, it's totally up to them as to how they go through that process.
No,
So
we're really long here on the show, but I got to tell
Yep.
you, I don't care. I'm just really grateful that you were here to clarify this stuff. But I'm curious about this particular case, because out of the Ninth Circuit, it certainly affects very restrictive states, Hawaii and California among them, as well as others, because it's the circuit that covers a number of states. I don't even remember how many, but there's a bunch.
I think it's 11.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. If this case out of Hawaii, Young versus Hawaii, is settled, by the way, your light went off again, but that's okay. If this case out of Hawaii is settled in such a way that open carry becomes the law, how does that affect these restrictive states like California? What happens? What happens then?
The decision of the Ninth Circuit Court will apply to all of the states within that circuit. So all of a sudden, the open carry laws or the ban on open carry in the state of California will vaporize. It would go away through that ruling. What would happen is probably that the state of Hawaii would appeal that ruling to the Supreme Court, which would probably delay the implementation of of getting rid of the laws until the Supreme Court says, nah, we're not going to take this case. We're going to let the Ninth ruling stand, in which case, the law goes away. And in the Ninth, if there are other states that have contrary positions, then the Supreme Court might accept the case and rule uniformly for the rest of the country. But a ruling from the Ninth applies to every state: Washington, Oregon, Alaska, Hawaii, Arizona, Idaho, whatever else is in the Ninth Circuit.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot, and some of them, like I
Yep.
said, Oregon and Washington have been going the wrong direction for a while, and so
That's
it would
correct.
be interesting to see how this affects it. Sam, thank you very much. We're supposed to go a half an hour. I burned up an hour of your time. I apologize,
Yeah.
but I'm very, very grateful. I need to get you out of there so that you can go do what you're going to do. Otherwise, Lori's going to send me, nasty notes or something. I get it. Thank you so much for being on the show again. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in person again. And if you ever invite me up there, I might come up and have coffee with you or lunch or whatever. Or
we
if
will
you're-
definitely do that. Joel, if I can interject,
Of course,
just
please
one last
do.
point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What you said about the National Rifle Association is very, very important. We need the National Rifle Association. The NRA in California has spent millions and millions of dollars on all of the lawsuits that have made their way and are shaping our direction on the Second Amendment nationwide. We need them to continue to support the New Jersey lawsuit, the New York lawsuit, and a myriad, probably dozens and dozens of lawsuits throughout the country. You know what? Every large organization has a occasional food fight, and things get resolved. Now is not the time to abandon them. Now is the time to continue to support them, because the things that they are doing in the courts right now are going to affect you and your Second Amendment rights in the near future. So don't, as you said, cut off your nose to spite your face or shoot yourself in the foot. I wanted to make sure that folks here in California continue to support NRA, California Rifle and Pistol Association, who's our partners in an amicus brief that has been submitted on New York. Together, we joined in and fired off one humdinger of a tough case where we took to task all of the courts that have been flipping the Supreme Court the middle finger and encouraged the Supreme Court to rule appropriately. I appreciate our time together, our ability to go into these issues at depth. Anybody who has any questions, they can either email you or they can contact us.
Don't email me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Contact Gun Owners of California.
Contact Gun Owners of California.
I'll have a link in the description so you can contact Sam. And if you are not a member of Gun Owners of California, I don't care what part of the planet you're on. If you're a gun enthusiast or a Second Amendment supporter, I don't care what part of the country you're in, help us out here in California. Gun Owners of California needs your support. You will find a link in the description. Please, please, please join, contribute, and so on. Sam, thank you very much. Have a wonderful week. And I really, really do appreciate, once again, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the clarity that you brought to these issues for me and for gun owners in California. It's always an honor and a pleasure. I look forward to our next conversation, brother. Me too. Have a great week. Wherever you go, whatever you do, please be safe.